Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. In the name of love. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on.
So, this is the weekend of what goes on in the dark stays in the dark. When I heard that that was the theme this year, that it was going to be what goes on in the dark stays in the dark, I thought, well, how appropriate. Because that seems to have always been our mantra as black people. I thought back to when I was young and how much I used to keep in the dark. I was kinky before I knew what being kinky was. I remember as a child, I would cross-dress Ken. I would tie him and Barbie together. And when I realized that all the other kids were staring at me, I just laughed and told them, isn't this a joke? And I learned to keep it to myself. Later, I didn't let my kinks or sexual preferences be known because good girls only acted a certain way. And so I kept my sexual thoughts and fantasies to myself, and they too stayed in the dark. When I entered the lifestyle, I thought there would be no more secrets, because after all, this was all about being open and honest and self-exploration, right? I began traveling through our communities, and regardless of where I went, I found something in common. No one ever wanted to discuss the elephant in the room. So before I talk about that elephant, I'd first like to talk about what goes on in the dark that probably should stay in the dark. When you see someone posting negativity on these groups and in these forums with no other purpose but to cause dissension, yes, that should be kept in the dark. When someone self-appoints themselves with honorifics and expects that everyone should grant them the utmost respect because of it, yes, let's keep that in the dark. When our posts become bitch sessions and nothing positive or constructive can come from them, yes, we should surely keep that in the dark. And when a situation happens and you are not part of it, was not there, was not involved, but you want to put your 2 cents in as to how you think it shoulda, woulda, coulda have gone, yes, we definitely need to keep that in the dark. The social network has taken away all privacy, but at the same time allows anonymity to those that want to create false identities while they out or cause irreparable harm to others. Pictures are showing up of people without their approval, and people are discussing things from venues that strictly says what goes on here stays here. Groups and organizations are disbanding and in turmoil because there are too many chiefs and not enough Indians. And conflict resolution skills are sorely lacking or non-existent. What has become more troubling is that in this day and age, where I would expect that we would be more open and expressive about issues, especially issues that are so relevant for people of color, we are still burying our heads in the sand and still keeping it all in the dark. So what is going on in the dark? What things are ignored and never talked about? Well, I could name a zillion, but how about just a few? We never discuss how much domestic and sexual abuse goes on in our community and how many dysfunctional relationships are being called BDSM. In the gay community, it is just as prevalent and sometimes more so, but it is ignored because who would believe a man couldn't handle himself against another man? Right. Or a woman against another woman for that matter. So, it stays in the dark. HIV is still here and still fatal, But because we have developed medications, we have become complacent in our efforts to educate. The het community still deludes themselves that this is a predominantly gay disease. And now men and women are contacting the disease at a younger and younger age. Men in the gay community are living longer with it, and so there are so many men that continue to bareback and brag about it and think that if they get the disease, they will just pop a pill and it will be okay. Not to mention all of the men and women in all of the communities that are HIV positive and not divulging that information and infecting so many, but say they gave consent, even though it was not informed consent. Nope, that stays in the dark. Then, the LGBTQ community is so busy infighting and taking offense when outsiders are asking questions, not to judge, but just to understand the dynamics, instead of trying to build bridges within the community. Yeah. That, yep, stays in the dark. Then there is the drug epidemic that is going on throughout our community, and people are no longer getting high or playing, but rather getting high and playing. We know people, and even have friends, that are effed up and either are getting on the equipment to be played, or worse, putting someone else on the equipment to play. And yet, we hold our tongue and we walk away. Let's keep it in the dark. Do we talk about how words still affect us and the power they have over us? How some lifestyles still cringe at master and slave and won't even consider attending a race play class? Nope, that needs to stay in the dark. We have black men that think that they lack power because they don't know their power. And they enter in this lifestyle displaying overinflated egos while trying to hide their insecurities. Black male dominants treat black male submissives as less than. And black male subs still only want to submit behind closed doors. But that, too, should remain unspoken and in the dark. We have black women that run their own businesses and have achieved so much that they use their power as a weapon and kill and destroy the very things that they say they desire. We black women emancipate our black men through our deeds and even way more through our words. We won't talk about that. It needs to stay in the dark. We as black people have forgotten that life and death is in our tongue. Although speaking life is why many of us are still here today. We no longer sit at our elders' feet and listen to all of their wisdom because our arrogance won't allow us to believe that there could still be relevance in that wisdom. Black people have lived and continue to live on the premise that if it is not me or mine, then it's not my business. We will march on Washington, write letters to the president, and stand with Al Sharpton when a white kills a black, but then turn our back and close our doors to the thugs that kill our own and do the same thing in our neighborhood because they too are black. And we don't want to talk about that. We scream racism of whites in the media, but we never discuss or even acknowledge the racism and the classism that goes on within our own race. So I know you're saying, what does all of this have to do with us, this lifestyle and keeping things in the dark? Well, we need to stop burying our heads in the sand. We make mistakes, and instead of learning from them, we ignore the signs, and we make them over and over and over again. So how do we break this cycle? First off, we have got to start having those hard conversations. You know, those hard conversations. We have got to talk about those things that make us uncomfortable and continue to talk about them until we're no longer feeling uncomfortable. We have got to stop looking all around and pointing fingers and start doing some serious introspection. We need to do some soul searching and start questioning our own motives. It is great for us to talk about this thing that we do, but we need to have more talks on why I do the things that I do. God is light, and we need to start operating in that light. Regardless of whether you believe in a higher power or not, it is a known fact that without the sun, and yes, for me that's spelled S-O-N, but I'm talking about S-U-N for you, the earth would perish. Without light, the vegetation would die, and there would be a domino effect. We need to let go of this idea of doing it and keeping it in the dark. Actually, the first part will alleviate most of the second part. If we stop doing everything in the dark, if we stop having a do it on the down low mentality, then we will no longer have to worry about it staying in the dark. It is time for us as black people to let our light shine. It is time for us to realize that those deep, dark secrets, those things we care not say or share, is constantly used against us and is what keeps us where we are. When we stop ignoring these elephants and acknowledge that they exist, when we are then taking the first step towards change. You cannot change what you are not aware of. And ignoring the elephants does not stop the destruction that comes on and goes on in the room. If we used half as much effort building one another up, both in and out of this community, as we do tearing one another down, think how far we would be. If we use as much effort to operate in love and compassion as we do to feel jealous, be envious in our community, it would be a better place. Life is all about perception, and our perception is our reality. So we've got to change our perception. We've got to start being proactive as opposed to being reactive. This requires us to acknowledge and deal with our demons, and to learn how to build up and encourage our own, instead of tearing down and acting with malice. What goes on in the dark stays in the dark? Hell no. I say we've lived that way long enough. Long enough. Let's shed some light on the situation. All of these situations. And many more. Because let's do it and many more, but let's do it with empathy and compassion. And of course, y'all know I'm going to say this till I draw my last breath. Let's always keep love in the light.
I prayed and I said, well, why? Why do I need to be there? And I think that, one, y'all know I've always been the forerunner of helping people of color do a lot of things. And I think that it's really, really important that I go to this contest and be a bridge and let people know that there are women of color that's in this lifestyle and that's doing these things.
Last year, I met a gentleman from South Africa, and he was really instrumental in spearheading me to want to do this South Africa trip. He came and he talked about South Africa and how new this community is. The very, very first Mr. South Africa title holder was in 2008. We are only now in 2014. So it is a very, very, very new community. This December is going to be the first Ms. South Africa leather contest. And I know my higher power has told me that I am supposed to be there. We take so much for granted here in the States. We bitch about what we can't do, but we can do everything when we sit down and we think about countries that can do nothing. People that are persecuted for being who they are, who have to hide who they are, who, even if you are suspected of being, you are not just ostracized, but possibly killed because of that belief. That is grave. So if you live in one of those places and say, in spite of it all, I'm going to stand up, because somebody's got to stand up. I think it's important that we stand with them and say, you're right. And I'm going to stand with you, my sister, because I need you to understand that we are with you in this struggle. And it is happening. I mean, y'all read in the news every time you turn around how women are being kidnapped, how women are suspected of being lesbian or being gang raped because they just want to fix them. We hear these atrocities all the time. And I want to go there and help these women and empower them. And let them know that they do not stand alone. And I really think that it is very, very important for a woman of color to stand there and let them know this. So, that is my latest and greatest on your tape. Yes.
I forgot to mention, we'd like to donate $100 to your effort.
Was I ready for that?
But most of all, I know that operating in love will make all the rest of this unnecessary. So as always, I say, keep love in your lifestyle. And if you can help, then help.
The video has been copyrighted and produced by Love Enterprises. Love Enterprises is the property of the Lady D Leather family. To order a copy of this video, contact us at loveenterprises@gmail.com.